All right, Nightmare Zone survivors. We're going back in episode 121. No shoutouts for a change, so I guess we'll talk about the news. What am I going to be doing? I'm going to probably do another top 6. This one is growing at a decent rate. I'm hoping it will eventually be competitive with the base, basically the base countdowns as well, but. Yeah, it's got pretty good momentum thus far. It's not too often that I'll make videos that begin to catch up to my sub count. Typically speaking, if you're a YouTuber that creates videos frequently, it's uncommon to get views equal to your sub count. For example, PewDiePie, his videos get about 7 to 9 million views typically, and he's got a little over 100 million subscribers. Whereas if somebody makes videos once a month, like one of them I would say is like Architect of Games, he seldomly creates videos, but he gets a ton of views per video. That tends to be one of the ways it works, but I'm probably gonna make another top 6. I'll probably make top 6 best guns, specifically the best guns, not necessarily overpowered guns, though some of them will be overpowered, there's no doubt about that. So because there's only 10 days left in-game, I'm going to be playing... We're not going to be skipping ahead in time, because I need every minute of gameplay in order to try to get this done before the 100 days. I would like that, at least. The closer we get, the more narrow my time is, then I will start playing in Standard Zone, like, pretty extensively in order to try to finish those last... Like, if I have to, I will go, like, berserk and just, like, super grind it out. So, I guess we're playing as Eric, because, he has stealth. We haven't played as Eric in a really long time, so why not?
I got an offer to make you guys. Can we talk here?
One of the things we're going to be talking about today is, are you close combat? Oh, yeah, you are. Interesting. You're also weapons handling, so... whatever. We're just going to go with this. So one of the things we're going to talk about is what you could do to get better in State of Decay. That's going to be kind of like the loose subject. Obviously, I tend to get distracted in the middle of combat and whatnot, but that's what I would like to talk about. I find that if I can think of a subject worth discussing in the video, it allows me to kind of fill in the silence a bit, like if I don't know what to talk about. Let's see, I need a pyro launcher, preferably an undamaged one. Here's one. And we're running low on ammo, so that means it's ammo time. So earlier we unplugged a...
Here's an idea.
Earlier we unplugged the, what do you call it, watchtower. That's because I want to try to get a red siege on this base so that we can see what it's like to defend a more severe attack. That'll be much better footage for this base. Go ahead and activate that. That'll probably get us to, what is that? Looks like tier 3 morale. Having tier 3 morale would be nice. I still need to transfer that espresso machine over. That's something I haven't done. And if we need to, we could start using the CNC mill, which I guess I'll start using the CNC mill. And we can actually double time the CNC mill if we really wanted to, which I kind of do want to. Oh wait, I was gonna get the ammo. Completely forgot my whole goal. So yeah, we're gonna be talking about...
Time to give your neighbor a hand. Or two.
About what you could do to get better at State of Decay, like what holds people back. In addition to just going around looting, we're going to establish a few outposts. It's going to be pretty non-committed as, like, my main goal right now is just to complete the collection so that I can make the clothing video. And to that end, I believe we got all of the stuff over there that matters, so... I guess what we're going to do is kind of like just go down this road like this on the out... Yeah, we'll probably just travel along the outskirts. One thing that annoys me is the CNC mill that, like, shrill metallic whine that it makes is annoying. Medicine. Really? Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, let's just throw all of it in, because right now I think we have protected storage. Let's call in one of these. Because this guy doesn't have the fuel efficiency bonus. Although we do get a little bit of fuel efficiency from this right here. 30% fuel efficiency. That's just a passive effect from it, which is pretty nice. So we're basically consuming 12 materials every 1.5, basically 2 minutes. So we're going through our materials very quickly. We'll want to make sure we're leaving some left over for actual construction work. So we don't want to convert everything in the materials. Okay, that just finished. This is maxed out. I think we're good for now. Let's get moving. Okay, so things you can do to get better at State of Decay. One of the things I believe, and I've actually read books on how to get good. The biggest one is Mastery by Robert Greene. And one of the things I believe is that all skills, while there are different methodologies, it's kind of like a river. Rivers converge into like a river's heart, and then they empty out in a tributary into like an ocean. And the metaphor, what I'm saying is that all the river moves in basically the same direction, just follows gravity towards the lowest, basically sea level. Like that's just how makes sense. Water flows, gravity pulls it down. And oh, grumpies. Let the grumpies here. It's annoying. Let's get that feral to attack him just because they don't have any cover. Wow.
Fuck off. We're not buying what you're selling.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so that gets the feral off of us. I think it does that. His voice is... Come on, feral. You want to attack these guys. I know it. Come on.
We got a feral.
Yeah, there we go. It seems like, although the zombies are designed to focus on you, it seems like ferals are willing to change targets if you can lead them to another target. Anyways, back to my metaphor. So we've got this idea that, although there are different methods to improve at things, they all tend to focus on similar concepts. And in State of Decay, it's no different. The primary way you improve at State of Decay is to look at the fundamental components of the game and just improve upon each of those fundamentals. And as you do this, your goal is to try to find how do each of the fundamentals stitch together into like an overall image, much in the same way that, you know, like your body works together, a system of organs that work with one another. It's not really like one system that just holds everything up. So at State of Decay, if you're trying to get into Nightmare Zone and you're like, you don't have the confidence, a lack of confidence means just, it's another way of typically saying a lack of experience. Confidence is created through experience. Basically, if you freak out when ferals attack, if you got attacked by ferals 100 times, you would start to get over it. Basically, you would be like, okay, ferals attacking, they're dangerous, but I can deal with it. And it simply comes from, you've heard them enough times, you've seen them enough times, you've experienced the physical damage they can do to your character enough times, you know how fast they are, you just get a feel for what a feral can do, and that's when you gain confidence against them, because they don't surprise you anymore. So it's not just your practice technique, it's also just being exposed to stressful situations. And that's one of the things, I think a lot of people, they don't want stressful situations, which is normal. Typically you're trying to, like, make things as easy as possible. But one of the disadvantages to making things as easy as possible is trying to see how many of these zombies are going to try to interfere with me. Okay, these look like a bunch of army guys.
Can you keep this up?
Obviously one of them screamed, which is why we got a million guys coming at us. So that's what I'm kind of hoping they'll do, is basically attempt to grab me. That's what I would like them to do. I would like them to grab me. Because I'm constantly entering into kill sinks so frequently, any attempt to grab me will just cause them to bounce off. Really annoying that we got an injury and a trauma. He just, like, slapped me twice, and then his kill sync, like, wigged out on me. I have no idea what that was. Anyway, so yeah. It's kind of like using a calculator a lot. And if you use a calculator a lot, you tend to become bad at doing the math in your head. You tend to do bad, like, you know, you can't do the math in your head. You know, you gotta get your pencil and paper out, or you gotta... You might even, for more complicated stuff, you might not know how to do it. You might be like, I have to use my calculator because I don't know how to do it. Now, it's not super important in many cases to know how to do a whole lot of math. Like, most people aren't going to be like, oh, I'm gonna shake my head at you because you couldn't do the math without a calculator, because in the end what people care about is did you get the right answer or not. But in Nightmare Zone, those over-reliances can actually become a problem. So once again, if you haven't fought a feral in melee combat multiple times too, like if you're not accustomed to fighting a feral, if you're just gonna like freak out because you're like, oh my god, like fighting a feral in melee combat, or sometimes they'll get a comment where I ask them, have you killed a juggernaut in melee combat? They're like, killing a juggernaut in melee combat? What if he grabs me and eats me? And you know, that tells me that he's so afraid of getting grabbed that he doesn't know that juggernauts can't execute you off of just being grabbed. You also have to be pretty low on health. Like there's multiple requirements. And because if you're healthy and he grabs you, then he just slams you on the ground and smacks you. But let's go ahead and put this stuff away. And so, like, basically, the reason that's a problem is because it means you don't know all the things that a Juggernaut can do. You don't know that all of his attacks, you don't know all of his weaknesses, you don't know the limits of his capabilities, and, like, those are things that can come to bite you in Nightmare Zone. Because Nightmare Zone doesn't always wait to drop its enemies on you. You know, oh, it's Nightmare Zone time. Sometimes the enemies just pop in and you just need to deal with them. Sometimes you're in a situation where the feral attacks and you don't want to make noise, like you would prefer to not use your pyro launcher. Like, it's just the feral by himself. It's the perfect time to fight him one-on-one, and you know, you don't want to use your pyro launcher. You might not even want to shoot him just because you don't want to get the attention of the additional zombies. Yeah, that's just one of the times where... Are you comfortable with fighting a feral? If the answer is no, fight him on not Nightmare Zone, fight him on Standard Zone. Until you can fight them one-on-one without getting hit even once. I mean, you don't have to play perfectly. You don't have to, like, never get hit. I'm not suggesting that, but... You should be able to fight a feral and on standard zone, and with no interference, just like a nice clean one-on-one, you should be able to fight them without getting hit a single time. Like, you should learn how to dodge their counterattack, how to recognize when they are going to break out of your combo and try to counterattack you. And if you can do that, then you're going to find that you get a lot more confident at the game. And when ferals attack on Nightmare Zone, it's still going to be traumatic, but you know how they move. You have a basic idea of how much damage they do, because that doesn't change on Nightmare Zone. The way they skitter around, the way they counterattack, they don't get any new abilities in Nightmare Zone. And that's one of the keys there. So just getting used to doing things that you might consider inefficient, things like fighting enemies in melee combat that you wouldn't normally, kind of like doing challenges. Like, one of the things that really helped me improve is doing the challenges. I thought they were kind of dopey and stupid, but they taught me the limit, the extent, like the maximum potential, like of the assault kick, for example. Part of the reason why I think assault kick is so bad is because I used it to kick a plague guard to death, and I basically got to see, like, what is the end game of the assault kick? Like, what is the best that this thing can possibly do? Like, I kicked a feral to death with it, I kicked a plague guard to death with it. I did try to kick a juggernaut to death with it, which I wasn't able. I probably could do it if I really, really tried hard, but I didn't put as much effort as I could have into it. But by doing all those things, like, you begin to learn the ins and outs of each skill, because there's a lot of skills. This leads into the next problem. So the next problem is that when people play in Standard Zone in particular, but also in all those, it doesn't matter what difficulty, but especially in Standard Zone when you're first getting started, you'll have a tendency to have this one strategy that you really like. It's like it's the working strategy, and you're like, oh man, this is what's good. And then what happens is, because it works good, or at least by your standards it works good, like you have, and that's really the point there, is that you don't expand from that strategy, and as a result, you have no idea if that is the best strategy or not, or if there was maybe there's a better strategy right around the corner, but because you don't want to try other ideas, because you're just sticking with what was safe, you run into this problem where you can't expand. And I talked earlier about problems with chasing efficiency. This also falls into that category. Basically, people find like one efficient strategy, it's working really well for them, and maybe it is a good idea. For example, like there is an argument to use weapons handling. I'm not gonna deny it. So maybe you find a strategy, and it's a good one. The problem, though, is that you never explore the other strategies, and the end result is you don't know if your idea is the best idea or not. And even if your idea is competitive with the best, maybe it's not the best in every situation, maybe it has some weaknesses, but because you don't try other strategies, you can't really recognize the weaknesses of it. It's kind of like in a fighting game, like you're playing Smash Bros. It's fine to have a main character, because if you have a main character that you clock all your time into, you know their moves in and out, they're like an extension of your own body, that's fine. But if there's characters that give you a lot of trouble, it's often a good idea to try to learn how to play those characters so that you can understand what their weaknesses are, like what really annoys those characters. They're like, oh god, I hate it when this happens in the game because this is what my character's limits are. A lot of times you won't know what those limits are until you basically wear their shoes and like walk in their shoes for a little bit and experience what it's like to play as a different character. The same goes in State of Decay. Until you've walked in the shoes of some of the other play styles, you may not know if yours is the best idea.
You said you'd take care of it. Any updates?
And that's why I'll often try some ideas, like ideas that I often... There are ideas that people suggest, and I'm like, you know, this sounds like a really dumb idea, but maybe I'll try it anyways, because I don't know. And that's the issue there. I don't know, and I predict it's a bad idea. I might even have a strong prediction that it's a bad idea, but sometimes I'll try it anyways, just to be like, oh, I don't know. Like, for example, I knew that trying to kill a hostile community with a revolver, I knew that was a bad idea. I'm like, I would be really surprised if it was not a bad idea. But I did it anyways. One, because it would be entertaining. Two, it would be educational. I know that other people would see it, and then they were surprised by just the sheer quantity of interference, how basically we couldn't even do the challenge. Like, the zombies just ruined everything. And they were surprised by how noisy revolvers are. And why basically the reason why revolvers are bad weapons, except for the Echo S1, because they just make too much noise. It looks like this is an area we can loot. It's a military location.
You never do get used
Also
to
a
this
plague
stuff.
art location, but that's not a big deal.
I guess.
Let me stop talking and use my ears for a bit.
Empty.
Yeah, I do want that ammo.
Damn, that's one ugly bloater.
I do want that. I don't want that. I'm gonna assume that's all of them, because like that was a good like 6-ish lootables we just got there. You're not part of a horde, so there's no reason I can't execute you. Okay, let's drop this. This and this is gonna get dropped, which allows me to pick these up, and then we can put the 2 rucksacks back in. Okay, we're getting like way more rucksacks than I was expecting. Is there anything I want to do before we go back? Like maybe I want to create an outpost in this area, and then we'll go back. But yeah, so basically, I will try ideas even if I have a very strong certainty that I don't think they'll be a good idea. And that's because sometimes I'm wrong. That what I thought wasn't a good idea wound up actually either A, being a good idea, or B, even if it's not an amazing idea, sometimes it's a fun idea. Like, I just couldn't stand acrobatics, and I still don't like acrobatics, but when I was told to try the flying knee press, I'm like, you know what? What I'll concede about it is that it is fun. It hasn't changed my opinion that I think it's bad, but I think it's fun, just like that. And fun has value, certainly.
I need to finish that one.
No doubt about it. Fun definitely has value.
Hell, this is practically made to order for us.
And in some cases, I think people could probably stand to focus on optimizing fun efficiency in some cases, because some people get a little crazy about eking out every little bit of efficiency possible. Probably gonna claim this location as well. So we've got basically 2 ideas to improve so far. First, put yourself in stressful, so basically take yourself out of your comfort zone. Going back to that book I read about Robert Greene, what was it, Mastery? Getting out of the comfort zone is really one of the keys. Basically, if there's a single strategy you're really in love with, there's nothing wrong with using it. There's nothing wrong with continuing to use it, but
The outpost is
it
up and
can
running.
definitely limit you from your potential if you become overly reliant upon it. And some of the ways it can limit you is you don't know the weaknesses of it as good as you might if you played some of the other play styles. Then you could see, like, if you try all the bases out in State of Decay, you might understand some of the limitations of the bases you like. Or you might understand some of the advantages of some of the more niche
You left
bases.
shit lying around and it got broken. Nice job.
What did we lose? Okay, looks like our storages now. We lost our grace period for storage. Let's install this. I don't think there's any more upgrades we can make. And that means we're going to, let's go ahead and, okay, that leaves us right at the materials cap, which is perfect. So I want to leave you some actionable advice as well. Actionable advice is always something people like. So today, or next time you play State of Decay, next time you're just playing and you're like, you know, I have no idea what to do. I'm kind of like bored. Look in your inventory and look for an item that you have no clue what it does. You're like, I've never used this before in my life because I think it stinks. Or maybe I don't think it stinks. Maybe you just never used it before. I don't know, get it and find out what it does. Like for me, that would be like smoke grenades. I've never used smoke grenades. Why? Because I felt like I've never needed to use them. But you know what? That is, it's still true. It's an item that I don't understand. Maybe it actually has some interesting uses. Now, sometimes item uses change depending on the stage of the game. For example, I used
Better be careful.
flashbangs earlier in the game as a way to defeat ferals because they wouldn't cause damage. They could knock you down, but they wouldn't kill you, but they would automatically stun ferals so that you could execute them. They're less valuable deeper into the game, though, as you find more deadlier ways of dealing with enemies. But that's one of the things right there. Like, have you used a weapon that you've never used before? What about crossbows? Do you stink using crossbows? Well, spend a little time trying out the crossbow. Maybe you never like the crossbow. Maybe it's never a weapon you enjoy using. But can you at least learn how to use it so that if you were to jump into Nightmare Zone for the first time, and you start to realize how bad it is to make noise, and suddenly you're unprepared because you don't know how to use the crossbow, that would be a problem. In the beginning of the game, a fresh, not when you're transferring stuff over, just a fresh new playthrough, learning how to use the crossbow is pretty valuable. And, or rather, let me rephrase, you should already know how to use the crossbow. It's also a fairly common weapon in the beginning of the game. They're not that hard to obtain. You'll probably get, like, a common standard bolt crossbow. Probably one of the ones that have the penetration on them, so that also means they have a scope. But yeah, that's a weakness if you don't know how to deal with that. If you don't know how to fight like a feral or a juggernaut in melee combat, go in standard zone and fight one. And then that goes into the second one, is if there's a certain strategy you really like I said, if there's a weapon you don't know how to use, if there's an item I have no idea what that item does, or if you've seen me use a strategy and you're like, oh, that's interesting, but I've never actually given it a try, give it a try. Maybe it winds up not being your preferred strategy, but like I said, if you jump in Nightmare Zone, sometimes, especially in the very beginning of Nightmare Zone, you have no choice but to work with what the game has given you. And sometimes the game's going to give you a bunch of things you don't know how to use. So the more things you know how to use, you become kind of like MacGyver. I don't know if you guys remember MacGyver, but MacGyver was this guy, a Family Guy made jokes about him, that he could like take like a bobby pin and like a rubber band and then like, I don't know, break his way out of prison or something. That was MacGyver's thing. He was just like super, super resourceful. It didn't matter what was around. He could just grab random stuff, bash it together into some kind of solution. That was like MacGyver's thing. That's kind of what you want to be in State of Decay. You want to be the MacGyver of State of Decay. Because at this stage of the game I'm in, I have the luxury of having I can use anything I want, basically. But in the beginning, you don't have that luxury. If you don't have all the DLCs, then you don't have the pyro launcher. You don't have the same luxury. So you need to be like MacGyver. You need to learn what all of those things do. And Standard Zone is kind of the perfect place to experiment with it. Look at this screamer.
Just shut up already! That's pretty heavy.
This is gonna be annoying having to wow, look at all this medicine. Like, why do we have so much medicine? That's weird. Normally we don't have this much medicine laying around. Okay, we can put the food in. We can use the CNC mill. Let's use this one to free up, to keep the other one available. Not that it really matters. The CNC mill doesn't take very long to process.
That's pretty heavy.
Okay, we got so much medicine that I kind of want to do some stuff. Let's make 2 bulk plague cures. $16, $20, and this will take us to 24. Okay, good. Anything in here? Nope. Vehicle is looking okay-ish. I believe we could change characters. Someone should be ready for... One of my drivers, or rather, Mackie should be prepared.
I hate crowds, especially zombie crowds.
Okay, now we gotta get all the way to the bottom of the list. I think I heard a feral. Like, I heard his, like, panting voice. That's another thing you want to be familiar with, is you should be able to identify all of the freak zombies just by sound. Even by the faintest noise that they make. It just like, even just like a little bit of breathing, like you should be able to tell the difference between a feral. You should be able to tell the difference between like a screamer and like especially what's like a screamer and a bloater. For example, if you hear a screamer on the other side of a wall, that's something you might want to deal with. If you're a bloater on the other side of the wall, that's something that you might be willing to ignore. So it's important to recognize all of the threats based on sound alone. Okay, we've got a ton of stims, so let's start using stims instead of energy drinks. And then let's go to the bottom and grab that pyro launcher that we didn't have to use, so it should still be in good condition. So actually, how about the third thing that I think you can do to get better at State of Decay 2? The third thing is sound. I think if there's one thing... I mean, there's a few things that could argue to be the top priority in... Oh, we went the wrong way, didn't we? It's on the opposite side. One of the top things about Nightmare Zone is, like, you kind of need a sense for how much danger you're in, because...
Hey, we need a hand over here. Strength and
Not only can
numbers, right?
zombies just drop in whenever they want, they can be, oh yeah, it's Nightmare Zone time, and they can just pop up, but... Oh, looks like we gotta restock the vehicle as well. The reason we're using this vehicle with a lower capacity as well, if you weren't sure, is because we're trying to scout the map at the same time. Trying to multitask, basically, get as much, being efficient, basically. And in this case, we are sacrificing our logistics efficiency to be able to carry as many rucksacks as we can. We're also the ability to scout the area, and we're also picking some of our outpost locations while we're doing it, so... Kind of like picking and choosing. Trying to get as much value as we can, even if it is... I thought it was going to be a military blockade at first. But it wasn't. Tourist trap. Okay, we got a lot of good stuff here. We got a house. And a military tent. That's our second military tent. That's good news.
Looks like some hungry deadheads are
What size will this be? Okay, it's going to be a large siege. Not a maximum siege, but a large siege.
Bucket empty.
Which means I do need to go back and get the footage for it.
Hey, we're blowing this town. I guess
take
that
it.
makes it your lucky day.
It definitely makes it my lucky day. I want you all to get out of here. Okay, we got at least 2 up here. Here's number 3. Take the arrows. Don't really need those. Here's number 5. Pipe bomb. Okay, so where is the... Wait, is that it right there?
Score.
More medicine.
That's almost too good to be true. Let it be true.
Okay, next we want the house. Like right now I'm using my ears, which is funny because I was going to talk about sound in the game, but...
All clear.
Okay, so we're clear. Start over again. So yeah, sound is one of the really important elements in the game because
Nothing.
what you need in Nightmare Zone is you kind of need a sense, not kind of, you just do. You need a sense for how much danger you're in. You need to know... And you might say, well, how can you know? Because it seems really random. I mean, you can develop kind of an instinct. Sometimes, yeah, the game will just drop stuff on top of you. But even that, like, you can kind of get a sense for when that could happen. But the game doesn't always just dump stuff on top of you. A lot of times what the game does is just have enemies nearby that heard a sound and they wind up showing up. And I think that's something that a lot of people underestimate, is like, that's why people were so surprised with the Revolver episode where we tried to kill the hostile community members with the devil at SP-101.
Why do you always put other people ahead of us?
Parts. Wasn't sure what I would get there, but basically nothing. Let's return to base, defend the base. At least we didn't get that far away. We're just like a little bit of a drive over. So how do you get better at gauging sound? Well, one, you need to stare at your little mini-map on the bottom left more. And like, you know, just get used to how much noise things make. Like, how much does an unsilenced gun make in noise? How much does a silenced gun make in noise? How much does a crossbow make in noise? When you shoot a zombie and their head explodes, how much noise does their head exploding make? How much noise does honking the horn make? How much noise does using a character emote make? Just pay attention to how much noise you're making. And also like misses. Like if you shoot an arrow and it misses and it hits a wall or the ground, how much noise does that make? You just need to be aware of how much noise you're making, because that means you'll know, like when you shoot a zombie in the head and his head explodes, that makes noise. But you'll also know how much noise it makes, so you'll have a good idea of, did you just screw up? Like, are a whole bunch of zombies about to jump you because you shot a zombie in the head and you didn't realize how much noise it made? You also need to be aware of things like the zombies can make a noise. Like if the zombies are attracted to the building you're in and they start slapping on the doors, how much noise does that make? If a zombie instead decides to jump through the glass, through a window to get to you, how much noise does that make? Those are the things you need to know, because when that happens, you'll have a better idea of how much danger you're in. Combined especially with like local knowledge, like if you have like, okay, I know there's a horde nearby, and because I know there's a horde nearby, the fact that that zombie just jumped through the window means there's a decent chance that that horde is about to like join the fight. That's where scouting comes into play, because if a horde makes noise, or if a zombie makes noise and a horde hears it, then scouting gives you that heads up. Like you can see on my radar, there's that horde symbol. Now I know they're obviously attacking because of the siege. Trying to find a good place to get footage to look around.
Yeah, I spotted a freak.
No, stay up there. Okay, there we go. Now we can... So what we're looking for right now is how effectively do our allies handle the base without any assistance. That's how we can tell. But let me give him a hand there so he doesn't choke to death on bloater gas. The Ladislaw I believe what happened to him was, so you saw him actually go down to injuries. I believe what happened to him, I'm gonna just stay by him now, is he got trapped in the bloater gas, I believe. And that's why I should have burned it sooner.
That won't work.
But one thing, do not trust the AI with bloater gas. I wish Ladislaw would go inside. The other reason I'm out here is because I'm taking advantage of the AI's preference to attack me over my allies.
Fuck, screamer.
And that's another feature of the game right there, like just knowing the game behavior. If you understand basically how the zombies behave, then you can use that to your advantage. Right now I'm just using the fact that I know that zombies prefer to attack the main character. I'm using that to protect Ladislaw. I also, for example, am aware that allies are really bad with bloater gas. Like, they make very little effort. I mean, you've seen what the, you've seen how enemy AI, once you get it on them, they're screwed. So there's no reason your guys are going to be any different. So let's get over to Ladislaw. We're going to cure him just immediately. So I have, my controller is currently rumbling, and because it's rumbling, that's the sign that there is a juggernaut nearby. And since there's also these guys here, that means it's a full-size juggernaut horde. Can they take out the juggernaut? Ah, very good.
Size ain't everything, fuckface.
And if there's one, there's typically two. And what do you know, there's the second one. That's why the BFG is going to be on the next list for the most OP things, because BFGs are crazy. Not against ferals, though. They're trash against ferals. Unless you're using them. Even then they can be trash just because you only get 5 shots. And 1 headshot kills a feral anyways. Cure our injury. Overall, I would say the defense of this base is acceptable. Like, it's not mind-blowing. It's neither good nor bad. It's pretty average. Like, I basically, I would say...
Congratulate our recruiters on the big push to locate more electrical engineers. Thanks to you, Operation Tannenbaum may be a go.
Put this away. And the ammo to clear up space. So basically, I would say this base is average in terms of its defensibility. It's the layout is neither an advantage to it, nor is it a disadvantage to it. But yeah, so just now I just demonstrated the idea, like, you just want to be kind of familiar with the game behavior. And that's the problem with Standard Zone. A lot of the game behavior cannot be understood and learned in Standard Zone because it's not hard enough. The game isn't hard enough for you to effectively learn, especially in regards to the sound. That place looks pretty good. That's a military outpost. Like, sound is not relevant enough in Standard Zone for you to really gain an appreciation. Like, you would have to use the most loud of all weapons in order to really get it. Like, here's a good example. If a screamer screams in Standard Zone, it really doesn't matter. I think the range of a screamer in Standard Zone is shorter than a regular zombie screaming in Nightmare Zone. And so how are you supposed to learn sound mechanics if sound is practically irrelevant in Standard Zone? And that's part of the issue of, I think, those are some of the reasons why I think people have trouble with Nightmare Zone, because I've said before that I think Standard Zone teaches some bad habits, like basically sloppy habits that you would not do in other survival games. And that's why I've criticized Standard Zone for being too easy, because when compared to other survival games, it's just way too relaxed, and it doesn't really function as a tutorial, because the point of a tutorial is for you to kind of get the hang of things, and I feel like Standard Zone is so easy that you might not even be able to get the hang of things, because you'll jump into a higher difficulty and you'll be like, whoa, you'll get like ambushed by all these new concepts and whatnot, things that you just like, oh, I didn't know that it worked that way.
Oh man, empty again.
Because they don't have enough impact in Standard Zone. Hey, where are these last two at? I'm getting just caught on the geometry like crazy. Do we have stealth? But we do need to shut those. Okay, here's one of them.
Bingo.
The light crossbow. That's not a bad weapon, but
Yo, you hearing me? I got an offer.
still not nearly as good as the... Let's go get rid of those screamers real quick. That was really bad aim there. Even though I hit him, like, I could see my crosshair jerk to the left. That's like a super bad habit. Like I apparently have gained that habit back from not playing Halo competitively. Like that was actually something I spent a month basically trying to deprogram out of my brain. Is that basically I'll demonstrate what I'm talking about. So sometimes, where's the zombie at? Like him, for example. I'll take a shot and I'm lining it up, and then I'll jerk over to the left slightly. Like that's like a really bad habit. It's basically like you're trying to compensate. And rather than just aiming steady and tracking the target steadily, you basically get impatient and you want to take the shot because maybe like half a second ago you had a clean shot. But, you know, it's half a second later, the target moved, and so you just jerk your shot. Rather than taking the shot a little bit later, you just want to be impatient and just fire immediately. I especially notice it on certain weapons, like charge-up weapons, like the Halo, to go use the Halos, the Spartan laser. Yeah, these are going to drive me nuts. I'm just going to have to grab all these to get rid of the flashing objects. I'll just drop them on the floor when I'm done.
Any updates?
Let's not get caught on that tent again. Oh, here it is. Disappointing. I was really hoping that we would get something here. Is it the Mart? So I guess the next question is, well, how do you learn the game mechanics? Gotta play in Nightmare Zone. Like the, there is a limit to what you can learn in Standard Zone. Like, you can fight Ferals and Juggernauts in Standard Zone, no doubt about that. Like, those are things that you can learn, but you're definitely not going to learn the sound mechanics, the enemy behavior mechanics by playing in Standard Zone. And I guess this leads to the next thing that probably holds people back in regards to improving in State of Decay. A lot of people are just afraid. They're just afraid to play in Standard Zone. And they're afraid of failure, they're afraid of dying, and those are natural.
Empty.
For example, if you start a YouTube channel, you'll probably be afraid of what you sound like. You'll probably be afraid that you're boring. You'll be afraid of the quality of your videos. Like, is it super grainy? Is it super laggy? Is it, like, really ugly? There's a lot of things you're going to be afraid of, but the thing is, the only way to find out if your videos are super grainy or if your voice is annoying or if you're boring is to be told it. Like, someone has to tell you that they think that. And most people do not want to hear that. I mean, I don't even want to hear that. Like, I'm not immune to getting aggravated by criticism, especially if, like, here's a good example. Like, I would get really, really crusty if people criticize the videos I put an extensive amount of time into. Like the Echo series. And it's not that they weren't making points that were worth making, it's that after spending such a massive amount of time working on it, it was such a pain to make, you just don't want to hear it. You're just like, I just don't want to hear it. Like, you know, it was such a labor to make this video. I'm just glad it's done. And, you know, like, someone will point out, like, oh, you made a spelling error, or this number is, like, 0.2 off or something. And it's true, there's a spelling error, it's 0.2 off, or you miscounted, oh, it took 39 shots when you said it took 40. Like, there are times, and those are kind of nitpicky things. And, you know, not all things are nitpicky. There are plenty of times when people say things that are just legitimately true. And, you know, that's when there's another skill for you to practice, and that's patience. And I'm certainly not immune to it. I certainly get aggravated when people get really nitpicky on videos where I'm like, this nitpicking is true, but it's like, it's not important to the video. It's not relevant. It doesn't change the meaning of the video.
Diddly squat.
But, like, going back to what I said, like, you know, until you experience that, until you get people who nitpick your videos, until you get people who are critical of your videos, well, you're never going to get over the fear of it. Like, no amount of preparation can improve getting over the fear of something other than just subjecting yourself to it. It goes back to kind of like what I said, the pressure of fighting like a feral or something. If you're afraid of fighting ferals, the best cure is to fight ferals. You know, like, I don't know, just go in there and die. Like, just let a feral kill your character. Just like, oh, your character died? Oh, it's not that bad, you'll find. Not a big deal. Like, if you die in Nightmare Zone, it's not like your dick gets Ebola or gangrene and you just, like, it falls off, it rots off or something. You don't get, like, if you die in Nightmare Zone, you don't get, like, bubonic plague. Like, it's okay. It's not a big deal. In fact, you probably will die. You probably will get wiped out. Because Nightmare Zone isn't easy. Like, some people will tell you it's easy, and I think that's because they've simply adapted to it.
Nothing here.
But, yeah, and maybe I probably contribute a little bit to that as well. Maybe a lot of it I contributed to it, but you know, when I created that goal where I didn't want anyone to die, maybe that was a stupid thing to say out loud, because now people might get the same kind of impression that, oh, they need to make sure they don't die either, but that's a stupid, that's a stupid requirement to put on oneself. It's not sensible. Like, when you go in there, yeah, it probably won't go too well. Well, it doesn't matter, though, because it's like, it's an issue of adaptation. And the thing is, there's only so much you can learn from Standard Zone. You're still gonna have to take that plunge into Nightmare Zone, where most of a good portion of what you learned in Standard Zone doesn't matter anymore, because the tuning of the game in Nightmare Zone is just so different. So in the end, you gotta get in there and play some Nightmare Zone. I don't even know if Dread Zone is enough to prepare you for Nightmare Zone. It probably would help. But, like, for example, I don't think they have feral hordes in Dread Zone.
Nothing here.
And that's a big difference. Like, there is a bit of a difference between 3 ferals and 1 feral. 3 ferals, if your character doesn't have a lot of health, they can kill you in the blink of an eye. If they jump you and they do the tackle attack, they're probably just dead.
I think I've seen everything there is to see.
Because they'll all just dogpile on top of you and just kill you.
Zone here.
How are we looking? Let's get one more of these houses. That gives us some room for character expansion. We're at 54 minutes. Let's drop off the stuff that we've looted and... Where's the locker at?
Can't do it.
Here it is. This stuff away. So I just want to loot this basic neighborhood, so I want to hit Value wagon. We'll hit these remaining buildings in hopes of picking up a, Wait, where's my car at? A clothing item, and then we'll just head home, because our hour is nearly upon us. Definitely goes faster if I, like as far as from a recording perspective, definitely goes faster when I think of something to discuss. One of the issues, I don't always have something to discuss. A lot of my discussion topics come from stuff the community says. Sometimes interesting, always interesting stuff, but sometimes kind of dunce-ish, like not big brain comments will sometimes inspire me to come up with a subject, and then other times just like legitimate concerns or comments and whatnot.
And no Zed's here now.
And that's the value of reading the comments. It just gives me, it fuels my things to talk about, things to discuss, gives me ideas on what I want to do. And we're talking about fear. A lot of it applies to everything. Like, part of the reason why I haven't started live streaming is fear. Like, I'm just like, God, like, do I really want to commit to doing this? Do I really want to start? I mean, I'm not literally starting over, but yeah, there is a fear element to it. There's no doubt about that. There's a, you know, some of it, there's also the excuses. Like, it's true that I don't know the proper settings to stream. Like, you don't stream with the same video settings that you record. You have to do it way lower. Like, streams are never as high quality as recordings because there are bitrate limits, which is basically the amount of data that's currently being processed. And on a stream, where you're trying to basically view things close to real time, really high bit rates of extreme detail, they just absolutely tank streams. So, like, I mean, like, these numbers aren't going to mean anything to you, but maybe you could understand kind of a magnitude.
I don't need to look around.
Apparently a common bit rate for streaming is 3,500. And you're like, once again, like, well, what the heck does that mean? I have nothing to compare it to. Well, what I'm currently using, the video you're watching has a bit rate of, like, I think 30,000. So it's basically like 10 times, like, basically it means this video is using 10 times the amount of data to improve the image than a stream will. Ooh, that was a fortunate snapshot. For a second, I'm like, oh my god, look at that giant supercenter. I'm like, oh, it's just a strip mall. I heard you. Okay, there he is. That was annoying. Like, my guy wanted to climb over this little ledge right here. And then I got stuck in the animation and I couldn't dodge, so he got it. I mean, fortunately I didn't get an injury, but it didn't stop it from being annoying. I just remembered that we have a doctor. Oh, that stinks. We could have been power leveling, like, okay, so you know how we just made those,
Bucket empty.
we spent all those medicine items on
No sign of
bulk
the
plague
rotten
cures? I
bastards.
could have been using that to power level his skill up. That was stupid. I mean, we can do that anyways. Let's call in Meds Trader.
Want to help me back at the base with some wheeling and dealing?
Wheeling and dealing.
I'm at your base with the meds you needed.
We are so past capacity right now, this stinks. So this is the police department. This is our opportunity to actually pick up a decent clothing item, since some of the items we want specifically include police stations. Oh, it went just over his head. That was the issue of overcompensating in the aim. So in regards to streaming, like there's going to come a point where I'm just going to say, screw it, I'm just going to jump in and figure it out. And it's probably going to be some really awful ramshambled thing. I'm not going to have all the cool bells and whistles and all the neat things that you can have, but there comes a point where you just, you know, like, how do you know what kind of cool bells and whistles you need until you, I mean, like, you can get kind of an idea of what you need. Ah, that nice. Military helmet, brown. Won't show mud stains. Very nice. So we're not going to walk away completely empty-handed. I might claim this as a outpost location as well.
Yeah, no room for that.
Here's number 6. AR-15, number 7.
Shit, nada.
Looking for one more.
I better watch my ass.
I believe I will be streaming on Twitch, though. I have been doing research on, like, what's considered the best for growth, and it kind of sucks because, like, I can't say I agree with some of Twitch's policies and, like, some of the controversies they've been embroiled in, but, like, people are saying that Mixer is kind of a joke. That it's really hard to develop any kind of audience and gain any kind of following there.
I don't need to look around here anymore.
And then I don't like the idea of streaming on YouTube because you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket.
Mark this place on the map as our new outpost.
And what I mean by that is, if things with YouTube, like, I don't know, like say for X, Y, or Z reason, YouTube's like, we hate you, Fox, and now we've banned you. Well, like, if you're streaming and doing videos on YouTube, well, now you're boned. Because you just got, like, canceled by Google. And that's what I mean by having all your eggs in one basket. Not a good idea.
Ignore us? You're skating on thin ice, my friend.
Yeah, those are the guys who, like, want to extort us.
Work for them.
Yeah, I think we got basically everything. I'm not going to look any longer. I'm going to get impatient. I know PewDiePie does D-Link, but I believe that's because, like, or whatever it's called, like D-something. But I believe that's more because they just gave him an incredible offer.
Hey, we're blowing this town. I guess that makes it your lucky day.
It absolutely does. It's music to my ears. It's like waking up to a sick synthwave track. I am glad that that song went well. Like, a lot of people said that they like that little loop. You didn't even get to hear the full thing because it's about 30 seconds long, but I faded it out so you only heard about 8 to 9 seconds of it. I'm always worried that, like, that it's going to be too corny sounding. That's typically that's going in my mind. Some of the songs I made have been, like, especially the early ones have been a bit on the corny side because I didn't know how to, I didn't understand some of the effects that make sounds a little more professional sounding, where they don't feel as, like, I guess the term I'll use is naked, where they just sound like, kind of hard to describe because we're talking about sounds, and sounds don't have, like, a visual shape. I mean, they do. We can use, like, an oscilloscope or whatever the thing is that allows us to visualize what sound waves look like. But, like, for example, one of the ways you describe a sound is wide. Like, if you take a sound wave and you add unison to it, which means it's kind of like if you had, like, a chorus of several people singing together the same note. That's what unison does. It just causes repeat of the same instrument to play. But then you can detune them, so they're technically playing the same note, but they're a little bit off tune. And when you do that, it makes the sound wider. And like I said, width is not something you typically associate with, like, sound. But, like, that's kind of the challenge of, like, trying to find words to describe sounds. Like, you'll have to go like, oh, it's like a crunchy sound, it's a wide sound, it's a thick sound, and you're like, what the heck does that even mean? And it's because it's just the limits of, like, it's kind of like, imagine trying to describe a color that has never been discovered before. Like say you discovered a brand new color that no... Can I hit them all? One, two.
Fuck up.
Got him. Yeah, so imagine there was a new color discovered, and it's unlike any of the existing colors that we've seen on the color spectrum. So, I don't know, you got magical eyes that let you see colors that no one else could see. Well, it's like, how would you describe it? Like you would have to use an existing color to describe it, and then you'd be kind of screwed, because you'd be like, well, I don't know how to describe it now. And that's kind of the issue with sound. Like, you're trying to find, like, a word to describe something that you don't think about on a regular basis. And you start to realize, like, the limit that... Let's see how close we are to leveling him up.
Well, I guess things
Damn,
maybe aren't all
got some
bad.
ways to go. Activate this, I guess. Normally that gives you a lot of skill. Okay, let's see how we're looking. Getting there. Put this in. We actually have a decent amount of ammo for a change. Not sure what I'll restock. I might make some 50 caliber ammo. How are we doing on fuel? We could put the fuel in. Yeah, let's make some no, let's continue. Like, I'm never gonna use bandages. Let's just continue making first aid kits. Was that enough? Yes. Let's go with surgery again. I should probably try pathology, but in hindsight, I probably should have gone with pathology just for research purposes. So I just did exactly what I said you shouldn't do. Like, I just picked a skill that I was familiar with. And that's entirely because all I could think of is this guy being a replacement. And and I just tunnel visioned into this guy being a replacement that I didn't even think that if I didn't choose that, I would actually be able to gain more research. And I'd be a step closer to doing the medicine nightmare reanalysis.
Hey, amigos, I'm back.
Tell you how nice it is to walk into friendly territory.
By these...
Hey there, it's your neighbors calling. We need a favor.
Do you now?
Yeah, here's your shit. Let me make you an offer.
I'm on board with that.
I got a feeling you and me can do business.
Yeah.
We'll make one more med kit. Very nice. Balances out our medicine pretty well. I might sell some things to him real quick.
Finally got our shit together.
'Cause I'm sure we've picked up some garbage to sell back to him. Normally I would sell all these... Oh wait, we got, of course, the plague cures. Of course.
I've got Z's crawling all over my location. Somebody
Oh
help.
no! Oh, I suck. Bleh. I didn't have board games? I figured that would be a duplicate. I guess not. We gotta be overstocked on something that I can sell. No, I cleared out my inventory recently, so I guess we're not overstocked. Hand grenades. Hand grenades are actually worth selling. Oh, come on, I just magnetized into a door. Because I'm never going to use hand grenades, to be completely honest.
You and me can do business.
See that? They're worth like, I don't know, like 30-something-ish each. Let's see, let's sell one. They're worth 34 each. There, now he's left with exactly 2 influence. Normally we sell a bunch of garbage, but he made off with basically like a bunch of plague cures and some hand grenades and stuff. And a car air freshener. Banger deal. So let's get into our logout position. Look at our remaining item that we just unlocked. His stoner eyes. Oh, look at that. He just got tired too. And just everything is just aligning right now. And we are grooving. So we didn't get any pops. We did get a helmet. Here it is, the brown helmet. Let's compare it to some of the others. Here's the way we'll do it. We'll do this. Tan helmet. The brown helmet. I think the brown helmet looks a little better on him, because it's a more passive color that matches the plaid, like the darker plaid. I think that looks better on him. Not going to use it though. We're going to switch him back to no helmet. And that means we're nearly done. I think we're down to like 5 items remaining. But yep, that's the end of that. We still got this section here. We've got all of this town area. We've got this entire row, which we'll probably need to burn some of those. Actually, we might just wind up leaving, so we might not even do that. And we've already went through that area, so it looks like we just need this section of town, these middle areas, and then the this upper area over all the way to this kind of like checkpoint over here. But that is that. Hopefully you picked up an idea or two on what you could do to improve to go into the nightmare zone. Remember that one of the really big parts is you just have to go in there, and if you have to go in there and just get beat up, then sometimes you just got to go in there and get beat up. You learn a lot more from failure than you do from success. In fact, I might go so far as to say you only learn from failure, and you only succeeded due to learning from failure. But, yep, that is the end of that. Like this video if it was entertaining. Subscribe for future State of K2 content. Of course, remember that you don't have to be good to get good.